Oh, sorry.
So what are like some of the upfront fees that or costs that you need to pay for out of pocket?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so I always let buyers know there are three things that you will pay
Hmm.
for before you get to closing.
Okay.
So the first thing is going to be your earnest money. Okay,
Mm.
your earnest money is like your deposit for the house,
Yeah.
and that's refundable.
Yeah.
So if you have to back out for anything legal, like inspections or appraisal,
Hmm.
you get that money back.
Okay.
So, and it's usually 1% of the purchase price of the house. So on a
Okay.
$200,000 house, it's like $2,000.
Okay.
So, and the way that works is if your lender will let you know what your closing costs are. So let's
Mm.
say your lender, and these are made up numbers, but let's say your lender says you need $10,000 to bring to closing.
Mm.
Well, if your earnest money is 2,000, then that you pay that 2,000 within like 3 to 5 days of going under
Right.
contract. But that comes off of that 10,000. So
Okay.
then when you get to closing,
Okay.
you only bring 8,000.
Oh.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so um, from there, so you have your earnest money.
Mm.
You also, your second thing is going to be your inspections.
Right.
Okay, so your inspections, you want to find a good inspector, somebody that's going to find every little thing that's wrong with the
Right.
house. And then our job is to kind of look through that with you and decide what are more like smaller things or
Right.
maintenance things, and what's like a big issue, like a foundation or a roof, something like
Right.
that. So your inspection costs can vary. I almost always, especially for new, first time homebuyers, I almost always recommend a general inspection
Mm.
and a sewer inspection because
Mm.
sewer you can't
Oh
see
yeah.
and those repairs are very
Very expensive.
expensive.
Did you go through one recently?
Yep, tore up our whole basement. I do as I say, not as I
As I do.
do, because we did not do a sewer inspection on our home. Should have. But we bought it, as is or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sewer can be
Yeah.
15, 20 grand. Like they can be expensive. But so if you just do your general and your sewer, you're looking at about 600, 650. But then if you do the five main ones that most
Hmm.
first time home buyers get, you're
Hmm.
looking at like 12, 1300, depending on
Mm.
the price of the house.
Mm.
So for inspections, you can budget 600 to 1200 ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the third thing that you're going to pay for outside of those closing costs typically is going to be your appraisal.
Appraisal cost.
So
Okay.
your appraisal is the lender sends one person out to determine the value of that house.
Mm.
And that is your appraisal,
Mm.
and that costs about 5 to 600. So most
Okay.
lenders will have you pay for that when it happens, essentially.
Okay.
Yep.
So basically, budgeting about $3,000. It should be uh like a good price range to
I
budget.
would say it's very difficult for first time home buyers, and I don't want to say impossible, but the more money you have
Oh
saved
yeah.
up, the better place you're in when you're
Yeah.
purchasing.
Yeah.
I usually kind of try to help my buyers get to a point where at least you have that money,
Mm.
because we can find programs like down payment assistance
Yeah.
programs,
Yeah.
or we can ask for things like seller
Seller
credits
price.
to cover like your closing costs.
Mm.
Now in a competitive market, that can be a little tricky.
Yeah.
But we can do things like that. But really, you're going to want to be paying for, you're going to have to pay your earnest money, your inspections, and your appraisal. And so 3,000 kind of minimum is what I tell people to shoot for to start having saved.
What is a seller credit? If someone didn't know.
Oh, good question. So when you're a buyer, and once we get you set up with a lender, they
Mm-hmm.
kind of go more in depth about the financing side or the money
Mm-hmm.
side.
Mm-hmm.
But you're almost always going to have your down payment, which is like your amount that you're putting towards the loan on the
Mm-hmm.
house. And then you're going to have your closing costs, which are things like your title policy and, other costs that you have to purchase, basically.
Mm.
And so your lender is going to kind of give you an overview of what to expect for all of those.
Mm.
But typically, those can be around 2 to 3% of the house.
Gotcha.
So $200,000 house, you might be looking at like 6,000 or so
Okay.
for those costs.
Okay.
Now, if you are writing an offer for a $200,000 house and you want to come in at list price, but you need seller credit to cover some of those closing costs,
Okay.
you could write your offer, say, for 206 and then get a $6,000 seller credit back to cover that $6,000.
Okay.
And so the seller's only actually getting $200,000 because you're writing 206, but you're getting that $6,000 back.
Okay. So you basically giving them more money so you can have some of that money back.
Yeah, and once you find the house you like as a buyer, we'll always look at how competitive that house is, what the different factors are, to help you determine what we could ask for. But yeah, in a situation where there's, no other offers or something like that, you might write, just over or at asking and then ask for that back. And then technically you're writing an offer that's under asking. But again, we as realtors, we kind of look at all the factors and help you determine what type of offer we think would get accepted for that house.
Let's kind of switch a little bit to investing.
Yeah.
I know you have a lot of experience working with investors. That's actually how we met.
Yes.
How does it differ? How does it differ working with investors versus working with retail buyers?
Good question. So it depends. So when you're thinking investors, you have I would say kind of two main types of investors. You have your investors that are buying and holding property as rentals. And then you also have your investors, like when we met, kind of looking into getting into flip houses or something like that. Now there are other investors as well, but those are kind of the two main ones we see. So when you are working, what I do, because I have experience with house flips, and we have rentals too, but for house flips, one thing I do differently is, if you're an investor looking for an agent, you really want an agent that either has experience or has taken an interest and has done a lot of research and understands that side of things. Because like when we met, you had found that house that you really liked. And, I think helping your clients understand all of the costs associated with flipping a house is, in my opinion, very important. There are agents out there that are like, you want to put an offer in for this? Sure thing. Let me write it up. And they don't check you. They don't look at your, ARV or after renovation value. But because I have experience doing that ourselves, I don't want to ever help buyers buy a house that I know they're going to lose money, right?
Yeah.
So, and investors, even if you might have someone that is well versed in construction, has a great idea of what their construction costs are going to cost, but how much are your closing costs? Did you think about that? When you sell that house, you're also going to have closing costs and you're going to have commission. Have you thought about that? Have you budgeted all those things in? What about your holding costs, your insurance, your taxes on that house, how long you're going to pay your utilities and stuff for? So for me, I probably over-explain a little bit, but I don't want people to lose money, especially if it's their first investment or their first flip house. Patience is definitely key when it comes to finding that first flip property.
Yeah, I think that was the thing last year when we got started. It's like there's just so much that goes into flipping that we thought, because my partner, that's what he does. He's a contractor. So it was like, you know what, we'll just find a house, put an offer, fix it up, sell it, and then make our money. But then when we kind of sat down with you, you kind of walked us through like, hey, if you thought about this, if you thought about this, you give us like a breakdown of everything. It's like, oh, damn.
Yep.
This is actually a lot.
Could I tell a quick story on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when we bought our first flip house, I was not an agent at that time. So Trevor was in construction. I did a different job, and I didn't know all these costs. Now we got so lucky because we bought our first flip house in I think November of 2019, before the market did that crazy, climb, right? And so we had no idea the amount of costs and the stuff like that. And not that our agent wasn't great, but she just didn't educate us on what your closing costs are going to be when you sell this, what your holding costs,
staging and stuff like that.
If you're going to stage, exactly. So we got extremely lucky just because of the state of the market. But had we not had that, we probably, I don't know that we would have lost money, but we wouldn't have made nearly, as much as we did on that first flip. But it gave me that experience to then be like, okay, like next time I need to like plan for all these things. And so I know that first time investors don't think like that, because I didn't when I started.
It's scary, and it's definitely like, but it's definitely helpful to have someone in your corner who not only done it but can educate you, because that's a big plus. I mean, and it goes for everything. Even if you're buying your first house, you need an expert who's gonna educate you, because you can watch all the YouTube videos in the world. It's not the same as having an experienced person who can help you.
And not to say you don't take risks. I mean, it's still a risk anytime you make a purchase like that. But I think just, you're right, educating, understanding what you're risking or what the risks are is important. So
if someone who's thinking about investing in real estate, what advice would you give them for 2025?
So for flip houses, my aunt for Christmas got me a book called, I think it's called The Book of House Flipping, or The Book of Flipping Houses.
Okay.
It's by Jay Scott. It's on Amazon. I think it's $13.
Okay.
Buy it, read it, highlight it, reread it, write it down, take notes.
Okay.
So helpful. It goes through everything from how to find an investor, how to purchase a house, what loans you have available, to finding a good realtor, what to look for in that. And then it also goes in depth on creating your scope of work, figuring out what you're going to do. Do you need to permit? How to find a contractor, what to expect for pricing for that. That book is so helpful. 100%. Anytime somebody says, I'd love to flip houses, that's so fun, how do I get started? Buy the book, read it.
I gotta
see
check
if you still want to do it.
I gotta check it out.
Yeah.
Is this still a good investment, like to flip or do like rental?
Yes. So generally speaking, yes, in my opinion. Okay. I would say it's getting harder and harder to find flips with enough equity or enough room to be able to cover your cost of everything, especially if you are using like a hard money lender. Because the hard money lender, they're giving you money, they're giving you cash to make a cash purchase. But they're charging you for that cash, and it's significantly more expensive than going to a mortgage lender and getting a loan. But so I think it is still a good investment if you can find one that you have that room. Essentially.
I agree. I think it just comes down to finding a good deal that, as long as the numbers works. It's a good deal, because also like real estate it's really a number game. So
your listeners obviously listen to podcasts. Bigger Pockets, a free resource. It is so helpful to understand cap rates and rentals and what to do with that. And so, educating yourself before you just jump in and purchase.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love Bigger Pocket. Shout out to Bigger Pocket.
Yes.
So my next topic is I know with the current market, there's high interest rate, there's a new administration, and there's a lot of things going on. What advice do you have for people who are discouraged about going into the market?
Hang in there. Oh man, good question. It's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It is hard for first-time home buyers right now. With the economy that we're in, people have less and less money, less and less cash on hand, and you have, I'm an investor, right? But I'm an investor that owns 3 houses, and I'm not some big wig type of multi-bajillionaire, right? But I think those companies, especially being in the Midwest, you have a lot of people in California and Denver, and their house prices have just shot up. And those people see our $200,000 houses, and they're like, chump change, they can pay $20,000-$30,000 over what a regular buyer can pay. And it's fair change to a lot of people. And not to say it's not a lot of money, but as we have more and more investors entering the market, house prices just keep going up and up and up. And a lot of people will tell you, well, I'm just waiting for interest rates to go down. I would love interest rates to go down, but here's the thing. Everyone and their brother is waiting for rates to go down. And now you might have 5 offers on every house here in February of 2025. But, if rates drop even, let's say 1 percentage point, everybody's going to have that much more buying power, and you're going to probably start to see 10, 20, 15 offers on every house. And so that's going to drive that price up. And so I would say, don't overextend yourself. You need to know your budget. You need to know how much your monthly payments you can afford. And honestly, with the hurricanes that we've seen on the coast recently, with the LA wildfires, insurance is becoming more and more expensive. And we've already seen, I think our insurance on we have a 1-bedroom rental, our insurance went up like $500 a year. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And so not buying at the very top of your budget, but buying at a conservative level where you feel comfortable in case something like that happens, in case, inflation goes a little bit crazy.
In case there was like a spike in.
So I would say my advice to buyers is partner with a good agent, find a good lender that will help you, and then understand where you're at. I come from a mentality of go get some money, go sell some stuff on Marketplace, go pick some extra hours up at work and
get
be
a side
careful.
hustle or something.
As a side note, let me say that, when it comes to your buying power, talk to your lender, because you can't just sell, something for $2,000 and then use that necessarily in your transaction as an income. So talk with a realtor, talk with a lender, understand your finances, really narrow down your budget and understand where you're at and how much you can comfortably afford. Because here's the thing, rates are I don't want to say they're high, because I think the national average overall time is 8%, and we're still under that. But compared to the 2-3s that we've seen the last couple of years, they're high right now,
they are.
Which makes your payment high. But if you can purchase a house at today's prices before rates go down and they jack up, if you can purchase that house, if you refi in the future, if rates go down and you refinance in the future and get a lower rate, your payment will lower. But the purchase price of that house, your loan amount, that amount never changes unless you're, taking more money out to do renovations or whatever. That amount you paid for that house never changes, but your rate comes down and it drops that payment. Whereas if you don't have a house and you wait for that lower rate, you're probably going to be paying more for that house as it becomes more and more competitive.
What is a refi?
Refinance. Yeah, refi, great question. So let's say you purchase a house right now at, let's just say, I don't know, 200,000, and I'm making these numbers up. Talk to your lender about numbers. These are made up. But let's say with a 7.5% rate on a $2,000 house, let's just guess that your payment's around, I don't know, $1,800, $1,900, somewhere in there. Well, if that rate goes down by a percentage point or 2, your payment amount, is going to go down
as well.
So you might have to pay a couple $1,000 or a little bit to refi, and they wrap that back into your loan, or maybe you just pay that up front. But your monthly payment is going to go down for the next, 29 years or 30 years or whatever you have on your loan. And your lender will help you understand that side of things. So if you hear this and you're like, whoa, that's so complicated, what do you mean? Talk to a realtor, talk to a lender, because we do this every day, and we'll help you understand the details.
I know this is probably like a lender question, so sorry to...
No, it's okay. No, good question.
Also, so you give advice for buyers. So what advice do you have for sellers in this market?
For sellers, so why are you selling? Like, think about why you're selling. Are you selling to purchase a bigger house? I think I get a lot of people now that maybe they purchased their first house and they're wanting a bigger. Maybe they started a family. They only have a 2-bedroom house. They want a 3 or 4-bedroom house. When I go in for that first listing appointment, my goal is to give them an idea of value. But one of the first questions I will always ask them is, where are you going?
Yeah.
What's the next step? Right? Yeah. Because if they bought a house 3 years ago and their interest rate is 2.75 or 3%, they might have a house that's worth 200 or 250,000 or higher, but their payment's like $1,100.
Right.
To buy that same 200 or 250 house at today's interest rates, that payment's a lot more.
Yeah.
So yes, they're going to get all that equity out of their house when they sell their house that they bought for 150,000 that's now worth 230,000. They're going to get that 80,000 cash when they sell, but they also have to look at how different their monthly payment's going to be and what type of house they really can afford for what they spend monthly. And let me just throw in there, a lot of people think like, oh, well, I have a bunch saved up. I'll just put an extra 20,000 or so down on the house so that my payments are less. Yes, you can do that, but roughly for every 10,000-ish more that you put down, your monthly payment is only going to go down about $50 a month.
And that's crazy because people, even I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, and people think that if I put in, let's say a house is listed for 150, or let's say, I'll give them 145 or 140. That doesn't really change anything.
It makes you, maybe you eat out one time less per month, right? But yeah, no, it doesn't make a huge difference.
I didn't know that. We're heading toward the end of the episode, but I got 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay, what you got?
First one: What's your most memorable home you sold?
Oh man! Oh boy!
Not the Harry Potter one.
Not the Harry Potter one, although that one was cool. I would say probably I had a referral from, it was a client that I've helped with several times. I've helped their family a lot. Got a call one day and said, hi, I am due to have my 5th baby in less than a month.
Huh?
Yeah. And we have hired 2 contractors to finish our basement, to add another bedroom because we're in this 3-bedroom small house and we have 5 kids, right? But we are due to have our baby in I think it was a month. And she's like, can you help me sell my house and buy a new house in that time? That's a super quick timeline. And so I was like, all right, well, let me pull my britches up and get to work. Yeah. And we did it. And they closed, and I think they had the baby 3 or 4 days after closing. This woman, rock star, amazing. I mean, she was moving stuff out of her house, pregnant with her, 9 and some change months pregnant with her 5th child, I think. And we did it. We sold our house in 1 weekend and found her a new house, got her under contract, closed, and then, less than a week later, baby number 5.
In this economy, 5 babies?
Right? I'm telling you. Yeah, that was a fun one.
Question number 2, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Ooh. I don't know that I received this as advice, but something that I feel makes me stand apart from other realtors, and not to say not any realtors are like this. There are a lot of great, wonderful realtors out there, but I truly, truly believe in helping my clients purchase houses, and I will tell people all the time, I will not talk anyone into purchasing a house. I don't do it. When I was a newbie agent, I might say oh, this is a good house. You should make an offer. It's such a good house. But the reality is, there's like a saying that if you don't love the dress in the dressing room at the store before you purchase it, you're not going to love that dress. And 100% that's true with houses, 100%. So I will never, ever, ever talk my clients into making an offer or into purchasing a house. But it is, I would say, relatively often where I don't want to say talk them out of, but where I encourage them to look at all of the factors of purchasing. I had friends recently that they found this house. They were having a hard time getting under contract. First time home buyers, had a decent amount of cash saved, but the market's hard for first time buyers. And they found this house that they loved. It was a nice house. It was very spacious. But it had an old roof. It had an old HVAC system. It had an old water heater. The exterior was all wood, so it needed to be painted. The fascia was, some of the wood and stuff was rotted. And it was a great house with a great yard. But that house probably within the next 5-10 years would have needed $30,000 to $40,000 of updates in just the systems, like just the roof, the HVAC, the things that you don't want to spend $12,000 on a roof. That's not fun, right? So I help them kind of weigh the costs of that and then what it would cost to get a similar house that's maybe a little bit smaller, maybe not exactly what they're looking for. And so when I say talk someone out of a house, it's not that I'm saying like, don't buy that house, it's terrible. But I'm telling them, if you're putting an offer on this house, make sure that you are prepared to spend $20,000, $30,000 over the next 5-10 years when new systems go out. And so I think just helping people, there are realtors that are in it sometimes just to close the deal, just to do that. And there are some that honestly don't know those things. A lot of new realtors, you're a newer realtor, but you're on my team and we had that whole training about what to look for, what to expect, right? A lot of realtors don't know or maybe they think their clients know these things, but the reality is people don't know. And so I think being true to yourself and not just helping someone put an offer on a house just to get a paycheck, just to close a deal, but really helping them understand, because if they buy a money pit, they're not going to go tell all their friends like, hey, I work with this great realtor, right? They're going to, have some blame towards me, even though maybe it's not my fault, right? But helping them understand the costs associated and the risk. So being true to your values, I think, is the short answer to that question.
I think it's like asking yourself, like, would I buy this house? Like, would I leave you?
Yes.
And like you say, like, don't just trust with a quick check.
Yeah.
Because if you do a good deal and they love the house, they would not refer you. That's more business for you. But
absolutely.
If you don't do a good deal, then they'll probably not refer you.
Right. And that's my team. We've not done any marketing. I mean, I have a social media, my personal social media, but other than that, I mean, we don't even do marketing. I would say when I first started open houses and stuff, that was like how I got a lot of my clients and just my friends and family. But I would say a good majority of our business on our team comes from referrals. And
that's the best.
it is. And you have that little bit of trust too. If you're working with someone who has vouched for me, I'm vouched for me. I'm working for your best interest.
Yeah, I love that. Last question. Biggest myth about real estate?
Ooh, myth about real estate. We already talked about this a little bit, but I think waiting for interest rates to drop is timing the market. I mean, it's gambling, right? Yeah. Like and this is a personal opinion, so this is not necessarily based in facts or truth, right? This is my personal opinion, but my partner and I are very in the mindset of we want to purchase rentals and houses and flip houses and stuff now, because if you look at Denver or California or all of these other, coastal cities, a lot of times how you used to be able to get a house for $200,000, $250,000. I have a friend that bought a duplex, a half of a duplex. Okay, now a duplex is when you have two houses in one house, kind of, right? Bought half of a duplex, and I don't know how many bedrooms, but I think it's like smaller, maybe 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
$400 and something thousand for half of a duplex in Denver. And right now you could buy a pretty nice house in Missouri.
$400,000.
$400,000, that's a nice house, right?
Yeah.
So I believe, especially being a Midwest, kind of protected by some of the craziness of the coast, right? I believe that over the next several years, it is my personal belief that I think we're just going to see things go up and up and up. Now, again, that is my opinion. That's not, based on anything other than my experience. But I am of the belief that is going to happen in Missouri, and I very well could be wrong. But our mentality is buying houses now, and then if rates go down, great, we'll refinance and pay, a lot less a month for that house. But if rates go up, you're always going to be paying more for that house if inflation continues to trend. So I think that, the myth being, hey, I'll just wait for rates to come down so my house is cheaper. That's not really, in my experience, how it works. And so I think if you have that mentality, do your own research, talk to a lender, get on bigger podcasts or bigger pockets, listen to podcasts, educate yourself, because most professionals in the industry, I would dare to say, I don't think like that. So, do your research and see if that really truly is your opinion after doing that research.
Where can we find you?
Oh, well, I'm in St. Louis. My social media, my Facebook, Mandy Compise, Campise. I see a lot of people on Facebook, and I'm getting better at Instagram and TikTok. Well, I'm working on that. Ben's helping me with that. I know. But yeah, St. Louis, Keller Williams, Mandy Compise, and yeah, reach out on the podcast.
All right, Mandy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We are having you lay down a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
And I really hope that someone will take this and use this knowledge for their own benefit. And so, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and this was incredible. And I hope we helped some buyers and sellers. And yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, cut.